Thank you for everybody for being here. It's a great panel today. We're going to talk a little about the fintech revolution in Latin America. And I think it's very timely. I think that definitely Latin America has been in the radar in the past few years. And I think this year we're going through a very interesting transition. I think there's definitely a lot of progress in digitizing people, expansion of new licenses and fintech licenses in many places, neobanks. So I think today we would like to kind of go a little deeper. There's a lot of experience in between all of us in different sectors, different parts of the world. But first I want to everybody give a little bit of an introduction and then we'll get going.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Alex. Hello, everybody. My name is Jaime Marquez. I am the Executive Director of STP. We basically connect various types of companies directly to the Central Bank of Mexico, so they can make wire transfers easier, faster, and, well, most of all, cheaper, no? And by technology. We've been around for 14 years, and, well, we work mainly with any company that has a lot of transactions, wire transfers mainly, and, well, we help them to automatize their treasuries, no? Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Jaime. My name is Jorge Godinez. I'm the head of the Americas for Worldremit. Worldremit is a fintech based in London. We actually offer digital services for cross-border payments globally. So we send transactions from 50 different markets across the world, and we deliver those transactions to more than 60 markets. So we are really pleased to be here.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Genaro Alarcon. Thank you very much to CrossTech for the invitation. In my previous life, I was deputy legal counsel for financial affairs in the Ministry of Finance for almost 10 years. And recently, I managed to lead the licensing of an IFPE in Mexico City. And currently, I'm leading the practice in DLG Abogados of financial regulation. Basically, we concentrate in fintechs and cross-border payments and payment service providers as well. Thank you. I'm happy to be here too.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much. So I want to open the topic on a very big picture of Latam, and then we'll get specific. One of the things that we've seen, obviously, the pandemic accelerated the process of digitizing many of the banking and even the applications, the payments. But I wanted to get a little bit of your personal view on Latam. Let's look at the big picture of Latin America in general. And what we feel we've seen, at least, is the acceleration of people, not only banking, because it's when you go into a fintech, maybe it's not a bank. So let's just not call it banking people, but let's just call it the digitizing of that individual, digitizing financial services or payments. So I wanted to maybe start with Jaime. You are definitely in the front and center. You're one of the first ones to receive the actual Mexico fintech license. Tell us your experience, maybe in Mexico, but just also big picture, Latin America. What have you seen that transformation of the very heavy cash economy to this very interesting progression into the digital world?
Yeah, actually, we've been, like I said, we've been around like for 14 years now, and it's been a ride, a roller coaster ride. What we've been seeing different like trends, no? Like, for example, in terms of a couple of years now back, fintech, no? So the credit institutions in Mexico started going fintech, no? Digitalizing the KYC, the onboarding, and well, what this made is that this made a new way of doing things, no? So what happens? We started seeing older players going fintech. So what we've been seeing around 14 years is this various types of companies in terms of e-commerce, fintech, remittances, and so on and so forth, evolving around time. So that is the most important part and the most interesting part that we've been seeing, evolving in fintech and evolving within process, and one very important thing is that with this evolution, companies start doing things cheaper, faster, and so on and so forth, and they are expanding, no? So around not only Mexico, that is part of where we are, in all Latam. No?
Yeah. No, and it's true. I mean, now we have Nubank in Mexico, and also Voila is expanding. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think the experience of the user, or how to get to the user, is similar in all the countries. I think the user in Argentina, they might have different situations, of course. Each country has their own limitations or situations. But I think the experience of making it easier, better, faster for the user is what's in common. And I think at the end of the day, what we have seen is the big winner is the user. Because I believe that in Latin America, banking has always been hard. You don't just walk into a bank and expect to walk out 30 minutes later with a bank account. It's very difficult to open a bank account in all countries, and not only in Mexico, in all the countries. So I think the user is really the most benefited of all the parties. I think competition is definitely tougher. And there's no tougher competition than remittances. So Jorge, tell us a little bit of how this has been your experience, how this revolution or this transformation of digital transformation has helped you guys, or not.
Actually, this has helped us a lot. Our company was built on digital rails from the beginning. So the company started 12 years ago, and from the countries that I mentioned at the beginning, where we originate transactions, we never touch cash. So it's cashless, so you need to have a paying method issued in the same country where you are based. And what we noticed is that it has been also driving financial inclusion into the receive side. Because let's say in markets like Mexico, where let's say 20 to 30% is sent to bank accounts, in our case it represents 50%. But we also have very good cases like Colombia, where we send 90% of the transactions directly deposited into bank accounts or into mobile wallets. And that was, I would say, this has been evolving over time. We saw like a speed up process through the pandemic that we passed a couple of years ago. But yeah, we have seen that all the benefits that you guys mentioned are really impacting our customers.
No, and that's great, and it's true. At the end, I think it's inevitable. You know, the transformation of digital from cash is only convenient. I mean, cash might seem at first to a user very convenient to have the cash in your hand, but in reality, cash is, you can lose it, you can get it stolen, yes, you avoid taxes, okay, but in the end of the day, I think that the user gets more from a digital process, more security, more options. And I wanted to talk a little bit, Genaro, what has been your experience? You've been advising companies, fintechs for a while. You know a lot about the regulation. You know, innovation in technology moves much faster than regulation, and that's always one of the key things is, you know, sometimes a lot of the fintechs get ahead of themselves, and the regulator comes chasing them and like, no, we're not ready for that yet. So we've seen that transformation as well. How has the legal regulation and that much slower process been able to catch up, or how's that relationship?
Yes, well, Latin America, it's a laboratory basically for fintech, and we have seen major players like Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, and they have all decided to follow different models. Like Mexico was one of the first countries to come up with a fintech law, 2018, which has proven to be like a modern framework to start up fintechs. However, by now, like the market and the players, some of them have managed to overcome all the regulation and comply and get licensed. Some others have been disappointed, and they have not matched the standards that are required by the regulator. So here comes the time when a lot of mergers and acquisitions would start taking place, I think. There are very few licenses that have been granted so far. There's a huge market to be taken care of. And in the case of Mexico, they are now starting conversations with the regulators to see what's the next step in terms of evolving this new framework that was very recently that recently entered into force. Contrary to that, Brazil, for example, Argentina are following other paths. They are less regulated. They still don't have a fintech law as such, but they have introduced certain regulations which have allowed to regulate the fintech market in a different way. And they're still kind of testing what are the needs of the market, what are the needs of the industry in order to fulfill that regulation. I think the big challenge in Latin America is to get to a cashless society. And the only way we will be able to do that, because we are all very used in Latin America to cash, is really to have a very attractive offer on the side of fintechs. Like, why do I have to bother to start using an app or a fintech? What is it giving me back, like to the street people? This is the big challenge, I think.
No, and it's I mean, we are talking about the fintech revolution, and we always like to see, okay, who is leading this revolution? I mean, clearly the people are the end users. They have not rebelled against the banking. They just simply have not used it. And as Henry Ford was saying, if you asked the people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So really it's up to us, the fintechs, the banks, the neobanks, the technology platforms. It is really up to us to lead the revolution in order to benefit the end user. So I think that, yes, the responsibility of being able to provide a better service with technology within the regulation, I think that is the challenge. Of course, there's a lot of competition. But in general, what has been a little bit in your experience, Jaime, you have, I mean, hundreds of thousands of users, or millions if not, and you do millions of transactions. What has been the biggest challenge? I mean, you guys went through a growth process that was exponential. What do you feel now that you're really leading one of these big revolutions? What has been that challenge?
Well, yes, the main challenge for us is from going from, like we say in Mexico, from 0 to 100, no, within 4 years. Because within the last 4 years, there have been new fintechs, neobanks, companies have been, like I said, going fintech, you know, and the growth of this market has been crazy, you know. And talking about regulation and that, it is good that it is existing, this new regulation. No, the thing is that when new regulation appears, is that the sector has relevance. No, so that is good. So we've been seeing that. And well, the most important part and the most difficult part that we are still trying to train. I don't like to use the word educate, no, because the user is already educated. No, we just have to train them in terms of how to use and what are the benefits, no? Like, and we saw a couple of things very funny in the pandemic. One was obviously remittances, no? 95% of all remittances in Mexico are cash, no? And the other 5% is digital. Now, we've been seeing this digital number increasing with time. And in my personal experience, we have talked directly to the final users, and once they try it, there is and we have some statistics there. There is a 72% of of this person staying within the digital channel. So this is a very important number, and what we fintechs have to do is continue. Well, actually, doing this. No, what we are doing right now is the most important thing, to continue communicating to the final user, to teach him how to migrate to these digital channels, and most of all, what the benefits are for him. One is remittances, and the other one is in terms of e-commerce or delivery platforms. No, the story I like to tell is my father-in-law like to go to the supermarket, you know, every Tuesday or Wednesday or what's up, and the moment he used Corner Shop or Rappi and his groceries arrived to his house, and he didn't have to go anywhere or grab his car or whatever. He was like, wow, no? And we see this adoption and this training, this communication that we are continuously doing, and seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah, no, and that's true. I mean, the embedded finance, as a word is like that various to coin, the embedded finance has really been able to provide the end user a better experience. And and I know we talked, Genaro, about a little bit of these super platforms that are being built, because again, it's not just delivering the payment. You know, that has been established. You can do that, but what else can you add? What more can you give to that end user? Tell us a little bit of how a lot of these companies are starting to become these super platforms, and a little bit of the embedded finance opportunity.
Yes, these super apps, what they're trying to do is bring into one-stop shop all the services, and financial services, of course, have a big spread. For IFPEs, for example, in the case of Mexico, which they are not allowed to give credit, it's a big challenge, because the money is when you give credit for financial services providers. So what they're starting to do now is that they have this e-wallet as an IFPE, but also in the same platform they can start adding up credit, or they can start adding up. Some of them are doing business with convenience shops, where people can afford to buy a TV or any home appliance, and within that there's a buy now pay later credit behind, and this is a way to present to people, like in one stop shop, a variety of financial products that in a different way you wouldn't be able to do it. What we see now also is that at the beginning, for example, banks were very hesitant to accept the new fintech law, and now there's a big trend of big banks asking for licenses to become digital banks. So this means that both parties are coming together into one, like banks trying to become more digital, and fintechs to offer financial products in a digital way. So that's a trend.
And I think that's happening, you know, in several countries in Latin America. I think it's a tendency that is not just specifically for Brazil or Mexico. I think, you know, Colombia has done a very good job. Jorge, tell us a little bit of how you see, as a global company, how do you market, or how do you strategize for different countries for their different needs? And maybe you can give us a little bit of what are the common denominations, needs for each country, and maybe what are the challenges on some of these?
Okay, I will start with the challenges that we have been facing. The first one is that this keyword that you just mentioned at the beginning, the digitalization of the customers, it's happening everywhere, right? So they are now used to send a WhatsApp message that will be delivered in seconds to the other side of the world, and they expect the same from companies like ours. And the biggest challenge we have faced is that when we approach to some of our partners in emerging economies, they didn't have APIs or didn't have a way to process the transaction as efficient as we would like them to be. So that's one of the first challenges we faced. And what we did is that we accommodated all the platforms and all the services in order to offer the best available solution for each of the markets. And it started with some countries in Africa where they already had a high penetration of mobile wallets. So we focus all our efforts, and we are indeed at this moment the largest e-wallet provider, or the largest provider for transactions to e-wallets in Africa, for example, and we are trying to replicate that across other markets like the Philippines, for example, or like other regions in Asia Pacific. And what I think is that now this fintech revolution is happening here in Latam. So Latam was not as big in terms of mobile wallets, but we have been seeing a huge growth during the last 2 or 3 years in terms of new rollouts of e-wallets, and that's what we are trying to offer. So now the challenge is how to prioritize or how to set your bets and say, I will go and integrate with this wallet. That's the challenge now. And the other challenge we have is that we would like to have companies like STP operating in all the markets, but unfortunately we don't. So this example that we have with Spay in Mexico and now with Pix in Brazil is something that we really need across other markets. And it's coming, but it's taking some time. But I think that's the biggest challenge we are now facing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It's really amazing, you know, in Brazil and in Mexico, the banking system has been, and this is an initiative from the country itself. So Pix, Spay are incredibly fast, unlike the US. I mean, you would think the US would be up there, but no, ACH is very slow. I think Zelle and Venmo have even become the go-to alternative for faster real-time payments. But one of the points that you say, it's true. I mean, there's so much innovation outside, especially in Asia. You know, I think people pay with just a phone number. They even pay through WhatsApp. And one of the realities in Latin America is that we do have one of the strongest penetrations of cell phones in the world. So I think everybody really has a phone. It's accessible. It's almost inexpensive now to have a cell phone. Everybody's WhatsApping, so it's not like they don't understand technology. So I think the vacuum is there. The bridge that we have to construct is a little bit like Jaime said, is education. But we're not here to educate people. I mean, we cannot be rolling out a whole education process. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time. But I mean, in the end, like you said, if the customer has an experience in digital, it is very likely that they'll stay. And I would think it's easier for them and they realize the benefits. I wanted to go a little bit into what has become a little bit of another sector in Latin America. There's a huge opportunity, which is the credit. And credit has become, I mean, Nubank is a great example. And in our countries, if it was difficult banking, imagine what it's like to get a credit. I mean, we're talking about like minimum presence, very, very difficult to access. And Genaro, I want to maybe talk about that credit access. That is, I would think, part of the fintech revolution is also the credit revolution.
That's right. One of the figures that the new fintech law includes in Mexico is crowdfunding, which is a way of obtaining credit for small companies, small projects. But on the other side, also in Mexico, for some people are starting to realize that going through fintech, which is parallel to the banking sector, in order to get some credit, you don't have to comply with or if you don't have a good credit rating, for example, fintech could offer you some credit, and you can build up from your behavior in terms of using your app or the way you consume or the way you behave, transactionally speaking, to start up building a credit rating. And this is something that people like which have no access to credit through the formal or the traditional way. When you have a bad credit, fintech can offer you that, and this is a very good aspect for bringing people into the fintech arena and the digital arena. So I think we're moving towards that. People are testing and are finding out. Like my son applied for a credit card. He has no job, and he was granted a 2,000 credit limit. And from then on, he's 18. He will start building up his own credit with a digital bank. So this is a good way and a different way of doing things, and I think fintech is playing a very important role there.
Yeah, and that's a good example. I mean, once you get somebody who's never had access to credit, you give them credit, they're grateful for it, and they start to nurture it and to take care of that, and they understand.
Build up a credit rating.
Yeah, build a credit rating. It's only good for the economy. It's only good for the system. But I want to get back to a very interesting case in Mexico, and Jaime can tell us why it has not been used properly. But what could we expect from CODI? CODI was built as a QR system, and I thought when it first came out, first announced, it would solve a lot of the digital processes. And tell us a little bit of CODI in general, and tell us how it's starting to revive again.
Yeah. Well, for whom you don't know CODI, CODI was born now 3 years ago, and it was born with numbers, and by 3 years from now, 75% more or less of people had a smartphone. Right now, as of the last numbers I had, 82% of people in Mexico have a smartphone. So there's a good possibility, no? That was the first, no? The Central Bank of Mexico noticed. The second thing is around 40% of people in Mexico have a bank account. So if we see those numbers, there is a very big possibility, no? So CODI was born with give the people the possibility to pay with their cell phones, no? As easy as an NFC or scanning a QR code, and this was based in WeChat Pay and in QR payments within India, no? What CODI gives empowerment to the people and to the merchant, so they can charge with just a QR code or a push notification within the cell phone. What happened? What happened was that the UX or the experience within the banking platforms was not the best. The onboarding of the merchants was not the best. But right now, what we were doing the last 3 years, and we are still doing, and we are doing right now, is getting to specific and the correct merchants and the correct partners, so they can revive these QR payment methods, no? And like I said, no, it is all about communication, and the right communication with the right persons, with the right allies, no? E-commerce, remittances, fintech, in terms of credit, no? Giving the user empowerment and the possibility to pay faster, easier, and the most important part for the merchant is saving money, no? So this payment method is saving a lot of money to a lot of merchants. So this is why our expectations within 2023 are the growing of this new payment method, and seeing their volumes increasing, no?
And obviously that was a government initiative, and it's important that again, I think what we've seen is technology has been able to really fast track a lot of these processes that were very slow, not only from the payment side, but in terms of onboarding users, ID verification, monitoring transactions, AML. So I also think that, parallel to the fintech revolution in itself, from fintechs taking this leap and going on forward, I think there has been a technical revolution that has made applications and software as a service much easier, much better. And of course, it helps that the government itself decided to invest in infrastructure. So I want to go back to Genaro one last time. Just tell us a little bit of how you help a company, or how do you suggest, somebody who's here, they want to reinvent themselves, or let's just say innovate their company. There's so many moving parts. There's regulation, technology, customer access, your business plan. How do you even begin to address this new revolution of fintech? How do you fall into this? How do you find yourself in it?
Yes, well, first question for the client is basically, what do you want to do? Because always when you enter into a regulated sector, basically not every suit fits everyone. So it's basically find out exactly what do you want to do. A lot of companies that have decided to go to apply for a fintech license, like an IFPay, like an e-wallet, solely in the way they find out that it's too tight for them. And they either have to go back, they have to restructure. So my first recommendation would be really to know exactly, and also not only think about what you want to do now, but in the future, where do you want to see yourself? I have talked to several big companies that have originally decided to start applying for a license to become an e-wallet, but then they realize that there are certain limitations under phase 2 or 3 when they want to become a bigger company, and they decide to go maybe for a bank license, which gives them like the full range of activities that they can do. So I think that's a good way to start.
Yeah, and obviously you have to have a product. I mean, clearly there's a lot of competition, and the product that each company has might be similar. I think a lot of companies are doing, credit is credit, but I believe also that if you start to go down a sector or down, a different strategy, so I mean, you still need to find your own way within the ecosystem, and then also I believe it's execution. And why does everybody goes to STP? Because your payment will get there. So there's execution is key in delivering that promise. I mean, there's a lot of good business plans, a lot of great ideas to solve a million problems for the end consumer, but executing that promise is the biggest challenge. And but I want to change the subject on the last part of our conversation. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about what could be coming next in the next few years, and it's no doubt that blockchain technology is here to stay, whether we call it crypto or we call it blockchain, digital. But I believe that the technology known as blockchain and what it can do for the future of payments, let's just call it for the logistics. There's so much used for blockchain. It has mostly been used for payments and has mostly been used for speculation and Bitcoin and all these things. But how does each one of you see blockchain technology playing an important role in payments, cross-border payments, local payments? You can start with Jaime.
Well, in Mexico, the Mexican market is not very familiarized with in terms of crypto, blockchain, no? And we were talking about it yesterday, and the key here is it is not crypto, it is blockchain, and it is the vehicle with whom the transaction is going through. That is the future, no? The Mexican market is not very, like I said, familiarized with this. So right now, Bitcoin and blockchain is used mainly speculation markets and stuff like that. But we are like I said at the beginning. The key thing or the constant thing in fintech, in the fintech revolution, is change. No, so we are seeing changes within the operation of certain fintechs. No, like in terms of crowdfunding, they are starting to use blockchain for the loans that they have and the investments and stuff like that. So we are starting that, and hey, it has been in Mexico around 7 years or so since the first crypto exchange was born. Now the regulation gives the possibility to new appearances, to new companies. So right now in Mexico, the blockchain market, crypto market, it is growing, and this year and the next one, we are going to see a lot of that, and very excited about that.
Great. And in the world of traditional payment remittances, how are you seeing that?
I will say that I concur with you guys in the sense that it is the next step for the industry, and it is also part of the future. Although we haven't seen a tangible opportunity to integrate with some of our partners. As I was saying at the beginning, most of our partners are e-wallet providers or banks, and not all of them are adopting the technology right now or requiring us to settle the transactions in a different way. So we are ready. We have the systems, and we have been doing a lot of testing. As soon as we have some opportunity, we will be implementing it, because we also believe that this is the future. But in some cases, we have some very conservative banks that they warn us, if you guys do business with crypto or with something that we don't know very well, we will debank you, for example, from the send markets. So, and that's a challenge that we need to work with as well.
From the regulatory perspective, as a former regulator, I think regulators must come up with regulation on it. And I do agree with you. It's the future. Blockchain is the future, and there's a pending assignment there for regulators. And I think after what we have seen last week with FTX, it's extremely urgent. Regulators cannot avoid more the topic and just put it on the side, or letting exchanges abroad to take care abroad in jurisdictions which are not regulated at all, like Bahamas, Nassau, and other jurisdictions, and they cannot neglect the fact that that there's a need of regulation. I was reading the newspaper that there's a bill already as well in the U.S. that has been presented at the Banking Commission, the Senate. It's a bipartisan bill that intends to regulate digital assets, and the SEC would be responsible for that. On that bill, as it appears, and I think that's the way to go. We cannot avoid, regulators cannot avoid taking care and starting thinking about regulating this, because as Jorge mentions, is the future for this industry. I think blockchain is the future, and cross-border payments and with digital currencies is the future.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, blockchain can give regulators and everybody else more transparency, more traceability. I think the benefits of blockchain are bigger than the challenges, and it's more about adapting. I don't know if you have any questions. I think we're out of time, but I wanted to see if anybody has any questions for our panelists. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was
Thank you,
nice talk.
Alex. Thank you all.